I can hear it now. Fans take the field, and out of that eastern tunnel pour 215 well-drilled, well-disciplined Michigan bandsmen. They pour over the eastern sideline, they pour in the big block in, and they play the greatest college fight song ever written.
Seth, should we have gone for 2?
Totally. No. We had the game in hand. Michigan did it exactly how you're supposed to do it, which is, have Alex Orji score in the end, have your last 2 defensive plays be the guy who got his face punched in by who's got assaulted by the Michigan State in the tunnel, and then the twin brother of the guy who got assaulted getting a TFL. Well, it wasn't a TFL. You got him at the line. But that was the perfect way to do it. And then they went and celebrated with all the Michigan fans who took over the stadium. God, that was fun. That was so much fun. I made it too. Roman Wilson did his YouTube video. I don't know if you watched Roman Wilson's YouTube thing, but you're on YouTube. You should. And like my nephew and I are on there. Like they came over and celebrated us for a while. It was great.
Well, I was gonna share a screen, but I got a client, John Slaw, who did this really cool pencil drawing of Aiden Hutchinson. So if you're on Instagram, John Slaw, JONSLAGH_art. He was like, hey, do you know anybody that knows Aiden Hutchinson that could show him this? I'm like, probably not. So maybe somebody knows, but check it out. This guy's doing these amazing drawings. He spent like 60 hours on it or something crazy. So Check that out. Seth, what are we going to talk about this week, man? Besides rates like vacillating between 7.8% and 8.1% and, not the best time for a refinance, but, Realtor and Lender.com. Check me out. Definitely happy to help with buying, selling, refinancing, investment properties, anything. And just to give people an idea of what their house is worth. I can do that for free. So there's my commercial. Let's talk some football.
Cool. All right. So I want to talk about how we were confusing Michigan State. Michigan had it wasn't a very complicated system, but they're really good at and they weren't doing it all the rest of this year so far. So this is the first time we really got to see Minter kind of playing with the other team and giving them looks and then making them and messing them up. And the main one, the one that I thought you guys would be able to see very easily, right, is how protections get set. Now, Matt, you were an offensive lineman for Seaholm, who unfortunately beat Groves last week.
Yeah.
So
sorry about your loss.
I went to rival high schools. We went to the same elementary school and then rival high schools. Long story. Anyway, he played offensive line with my brother, so he knows all about setting protections. We're going to talk to you about setting protections. Matt, how would you set the protection with this look here?
Well, I mean, if you're on the left side of the line, you're trying to figure out what to do. That's for sure. I mean, the left tackle, left guard, even the center have no idea how to handle this right now or who's going where. Yeah,
but I mean, obviously you have all these guys over here, right? And then these guys come down and you get the nice little sack. Well, almost a sack. He has to throw it out of there at the last second, right?
That was one of the best throws of the game.
Right. But yeah, I mean, normally you get a look more like this, right? And the question is, which side do you want to set the protection? Do you want to have everyone blocking this way, or do you want to have everyone blocking this way? And it's more about where the dangers are, right? So Matt, which side would you set the protection to, right or left here?
Well, you got 2 right down the middle. It looks like you got the linebackers to the left, so you're gonna have to account for that. That's right. Where the pressure looks like it's coming from.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, so they set that one left. How about this one? We were just at this one.
I would set that one. You got that corner looking like he's coming on a blitz, or the safety can't tell who that is sliding down. So looks like the Heat's probably going to back out. If I was there from the left side, they're going to come with pressure from the right.
Oh,
that's
okay.
But that's maybe I've seen this play.
Yeah. Well, no, actually, they did set the pressure to the left, and the pressure did come from the left.
Yep.
You got 3 threats, 3 defensive linemen over here,
more guys over there,
and this guy over here. But it's a weird look, right? So you start getting. So I mean, that's why it's a little difficult, right? It's a little difficult to set protections. We're going to close this one, and we're going to talk about this play again. Okay. So here's that setup. Now you see these guys over here. You're going to want to set the protection to the right. That means everyone. you're going to have. That means you're blocking the place to your left, the gap to your right. Okay.
Right.
All right. So, and that way you're going to have more protection to the right than you are to the left. You got your running back to fix any problems you have. That's how protections work. Okay. This one seems fairly obvious, right? They're probably going to do something funky. You're going to want to have him checking this guy, right? But you're going to mostly be, you're watching out for him, and you're mostly expecting, 3 or 4, maybe even 2 of these guys to come. Then what happens? These guys come down. Your protection is set to the right, and they don't have enough guys. So Michigan's only bringing 2 guys from this side. They're bringing 3 guys from this side, right? This safety came all the way down. And then this running back, because you got the tackle here for the edge, for Stewart. But you got Quentin Johnson here, you got Michael Baird here, and the running back has to block both of them. He somehow manages to do so. And then they're just running their routes. But when you have, let's go to the next play on here. Yeah, I was going to have you set the protection on that one too. But all right, so you have these guys here. This running back, see, he ends up getting both of these guys, right? So they're still coming. These guys look like they're coming. These guys are like, oh no, we're going to get overwhelmed over here. You have to set the protection that way. He manages to get his arm out there just enough to kind of get Barrett, so the running back can go after Quentin Johnson. But you still have guys in the backfield, and then doesn't matter because Mason Graham, who ended up getting 2 guys, comes through anyway. And
that's one where you expect Barrett to beat the block of the center just speed wise too.
Right.
Right. So, but I mean, at the snap, you had 4 on 3 over to the right. And then you had the numbers there. Obviously, we backed out on the right, so it was 3 on 3. But we had 4 on 3 over there.
Right. So, I mean, this was just we call it a rock, paper, scissors, RPS, right? So this is just an RPS win. Michigan gets Michigan State to set their protection to the right because they had all these threats on the right. Okay? And so you're watching, look what the guard does here. He's looking out this way. His threats are supposed to be in this lane. And then you just overwhelmed over here because they weren't accounting for the safety. Very simple RPS win. Here's the other thing they were doing. Okay? This isn't about setting protections. This is about watching the coverage. Now, Michigan State used a lot of motion. Michigan State likes to use a lot of motion to figure out if they're going to get man or zone. And then they run their routes differently based off if they have man or zone. And this is just Michigan State's offense, right? This is the thing they do. It's a pretty functional offense. It's not like it's the basis of the Chiefs' offense as well. It's not like this is brand new to anybody, right? This is a regular concept in all levels of football. So Michigan prepared for this game. This is the way you can tell usually is you set up with 2 guys with 2 threats on one side and 1 threat on the other side, and then you motion to like a trips formation. And when you motion, what you're going to get is either people will slide down, right, and everyone will kind of shift, or you're going to end up getting someone traveling with him, right, someone who's in man with him. And that's usually a key that they're in man coverage. So Michigan has same or still travel. Michigan State sees man. Everyone knows to run their man play. Man plays, by the way, if you run zone, you want to have your receivers as far apart as possible. If you're running against man, you're going to want your guys very close to each other, right? Because then you get people to bump into each other. Look how close these receivers are. This is a man beater, right? This guy's going to come through here. He's going to come over here. They're going to have a crossing route. He's going to come out here. And you're expected to get man coverage and have him, he's going to clear out with him, right? You're expected to get man coverage, and as soon as you see him on the wrong hip, this should be all
now,
clear.
you don't want on offense your receivers running into each other, which it looks like is the case here.
but their rub actually caused a rub for Michigan too. If you see that, I mean, this wasn't the main part of the play, but if you see up here, Samerstill and Page actually bump into each other as well. So, they don't run a lot of mesh at Michigan State, and you can tell. But you're supposed to have all this space. But wait a minute, watch what happens. Remember, you're supposed to have all this space to run in here because you just got a man look. Watch Wallace. They actually have the safety, and he's not watching the safety, right? He's seeing these guys running man coverage. He thinks he's got man. Doesn't see the safety is kind of getting over on top of this. And you have the switch route where he's going to come down and slam down on this. And they were really lucky that Wallace didn't step further in front of this, because that should have been an interception right there. Now it's 3rd and 10. It was a punt anyway, and Michigan scored the next drive anyway. But
But if he
So we're
catches
messing
that
with
clean, he's probably gone.
yeah. So Michigan is messing with them, right? They're running their they're running motions to try to get the Michigan to tell them what coverage they have. Michigan is they ran man on the inside, but then they had a zone, a switch on the outside. And that messes them up and then almost leads to an interception. Here's another example. This looks like man one. Now, everyone who we played against Don Brown for years, right? Or we played with Don Brown for years. This is a passing down. You see how this tackle's not even legal where he's sitting. He's lined up. But the idea is they're going to motion just to make sure it's man one, and they get this weird thing here. Look, instead of traveling, they just switch. See that? So Moore, who was on top of that guy originally, backs out, and Samer still gets him. And then it turned out to be man anyway, and they're running a zone beater. Look how separated the receivers are. See how there's almost all the space between them? That's zone. That's how you attack zone. Okay? He's looking out here. He's expecting this guy to be able to get free. But Michigan's running man on everybody with linebackers underneath. So he doesn't get his look. His look's not there immediately. He's looking down here. These guys are spaced out. Michigan's got his zone. Michigan's dropping people right into him. He looks over here, doesn't have that, and that's all the time he has.
Yeah, and we're showing pressure at the line, which obviously indicates man to the quarterback, indicates, okay, we're going one-on-one, right? So he's seeing that, but then we're quickly dropping off.
But So, he's expecting this to be man-to-man. You get this cover one look, but Michigan didn't travel. So that might be a clue that they're in zone, right? And then these two guys end up even. So they are zoning off. So the idea is you give them this look, right? They don't go into press very often. This is press man with one high. That's usually a tell that it's going to be man-to-man coverage. Because if you're in zone, these guys kind of have to back out. See, and it's a little more difficult to kind of get those zones. But you could tell they're zoning off. He's not ready for it, and it's all it takes, right? You make the quarterback a little unsure of himself. His first read's not there. His second read's not there. And then you have time for whatever your pressure plan was to get home. In this case, the pressure plan is just these guys are going to run stunt.
And it worked.
Right, and it worked. Right, and the protection set over to, well, let's go back to the protection, right? Protection set to the left. Why? Because they have all these threats over here, right? You have Michael Barrett coming in, acting as an extra defensive tackle. And he really does the job of a tackle. He blasts this guy out of the way. He's not paying attention. And you get a sack.
Yeah.
So Michigan had not done a lot of this until now. And now that they're doing, and they did it against Michigan State, which, okay, rivalry game. This is before a bye week, and might as well have some plans. So kind of cool to finally see them messing around with people. A little bit of a taste. This wasn't much of it. This is very simple stuff, right? But there's a taste of the kind of things that they are actually cooking up for Penn State, for Ohio State. They're going to have a much more interesting defense and a lot weirder looks, a lot weirder pressures, a lot harder things to do than we've been showing lately, because all the way up until now, it's just been vanilla looks and, a few stunts and twists and stuff like that. So kind of cool to finally see them take a little bit out of the box, and there's probably plenty more in there.
Yeah, that's definitely what it seems like. That time to start practicing some of that stuff in a game. Drew Aller didn't look very sharp on Saturday. Rough game. I don't know if you can count that up to Ohio State's defense being really good, or Aller maybe not. But he looked pretty rough in the second half.
I think James Franklin's assistant should turn him in for cheating. I think that he's been scouting people's plays ahead of time, and they have everyone's signs. And because everyone does, I know Penn State's out in operation. Rutgers actually has the biggest operation in the conference. But so they should turn him in and get him off the sideline for these big games because, oh my God, he's just they didn't do the things that work against Ohio State.
Yeah.
It's
Does this work against Marvin Harrison Jr., you think?
Well, you're gonna have to do a lot of this against Marvin Harrison because you can't man up against Marvin Harrison. Penn State tried. I get trying. They have good dudes, right? They have really good players, and they actually, held him relatively in check. Notre Dame also did the same thing. Notre Dame were able to man up. They had Benjamin Morrison, who's one of the better cornerbacks in college football right now. They had him man up against Marvin Harrison, and he actually did pretty well. We'll see if Michigan just tries to leave Will Johnson on him, but they're probably not going to, do that the entire game, and Ohio State's probably going to move him around. Michigan typically plays left-right with their cornerbacks, so they're probably going to zone off a lot. They're probably going to have guys coming in from weird zones. Probably not going to be a hugely different game plan than it was the last 2 years, which is keep a lot of safeties back, run a lot of cover 2, cover 3, cover 6, switch coverages where it's really hard for the quarterback to figure out where the guy is. And the stuff like we showed you here, they're going to mess with their protections. They're going to have things prepared so that Ohio State can't get a good read on what the coverage is. So even if they go in motion, that Michigan's going to have things prepared that, the motion will not tell you what the coverage is unless you're a really smart quarterback and you can figure things out. And this kind of stuff is what their defense has been predicated on. It's what the Ravens defense is predicated on. I've been pointing out for years that if you look at the Baltimore Ravens, whenever they get a quarterback who isn't really good at just kind of figuring out everything and picking apart a defense, who hasn't been in the league for years and years and years, they tend to tear that guy apart. And that wasn't what happened necessarily in the Lions game. That game was just a blowout from the beginning. But it tends to happen with a lot of young quarterbacks just get destroyed by the Ravens because they have so many of these switch coverages. It's so hard for them to figure it out. And then, Drew Brees would come along and just rip them, right?
Yeah.
Because there's clues. There are very subtle clues. I'm not going to go pointing them out here because that's way beyond what we're doing. But there are things that coaches can find. It's really hard to teach them to players with the amount of time you have for college. So that's what Michigan's going to do. They're going to basically tell McCord, you got to beat us. You have to be a high-level NFL quarterback if you want to beat us that way. And, it's worked before. If Ohio State's running game comes around, that's the difference, right? The way you get around it in college is, just run the ball because you're using all these extra guys in coverage that takes away material from the run.
Yeah, and people keep talking about, our rush offense not being there. I mean, Corum's at 5.5 yards a carry. He's at 5.9 last year. We're just not running the ball 40 times like we were last year because, in my opinion, because McCarthy is hitting every target. And last week, Ohio State, Penn State, both were at 1.9 yards a carry against each other, both functional run defenses. So, it's going to be one of those games where if the quarterback plays out of his mind and beats you, he beats you. But I think that our run defense should do just fine in both those games.
I mean, our running game, like against State, Michigan State was just jamming up the line, right? They're running their twist blitzes. So they've got linebackers running their faces into the offensive line in the A gaps. Like, why would you want to run against that? Right? Yeah. They're begging you to pass. They're begging you to say, hey, we've got matchups out there that you can exploit. I did this in my next Sharpies this week where, they left a linebacker on Roman Wilson. That was the way that their defense was predicated. That the concepts that their defense were working on was a number 3 receiver is somebody who's just going to get matched up one-on-one with a linebacker. We engineered it one time for it to be Roman Wilson, and they're like, okay, not him. We made some checks. But then we engineered it again and ran the same exact play with Colson Loveland as the number 3 receiver. And what happens? He gets matched one-on-one with a linebacker, and JJ doesn't even, wait. He sees that matchup and he throws the ball at it, and Loveland comes down with it for a touchdown. So they scored 2 touchdowns on the same exact play, running the same exact concept against Michigan State because Michigan State was just not. They were so focused on the run and so focused on stopping drag routes by bringing their safeties down with these switch coverages that they didn't think about J.J. McCarthy just throwing the ball over their heads in good matchups. And that's what this team can do to you. Like, you forget that the basis, the things that makes them so strong is that they are better players who are just matchup nightmares. And then they run things a lot of times. The plays that actually come out in the field are the things that are coming out. This is true for the defense as well. They're things that they're running in response to the things that you do because you don't want to just face the meat of what they're best at. No one's going to be out there and be like, okay, Michigan, go run your stuff and see if I can stop it. That was the way that Michigan-Ohio State used to be played, but no one plays Michigan that way anymore. Penn State might. Penn State's the one defense that I'm very concerned is going to say, go ahead and run your stuff. We're going to have our linebackers in man on Colson Loveland, and they can hang with him. We're going to have our cornerback, Kalen King is going to run with Roman Wilson. We'll see who wins. Penn State's the only school that has the guys to do that. And I hope James Franklin has the same game plan that he had for us that he had for Ohio State.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, enjoy your bye week. In the middle of the bye week, I'm going to launch an investigation into Pontiac Central because I used to send people to our practices at Seahome.
Not like they needed it. Do you remember the 2 defensive tackles those guys had?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't think either one of them ended up playing D1, but they were both like D1 caliber play. Oh, my God. My brother's shoulder's still messed up from those guys.
All right, man. Well, have a good week off, and we'll talk next week.
All right. I'll see you.